Are you one of those artists who has a bazillion unfinished projects lying around? Because it is just too boring and too frustrating to spend another hour or free to finish this detailed render that just won't turn out the way you want it in your mind. So by the time you're halfway done, a new and novel idea pops up in your mind that you will definitely finish this time, only to be abandoned and put on the I'll do it later pile. Because same. And this I decided to change. Hello, my name is TJNeku, and today I want to talk to you about finishing your unfinished art projects. In the past few weeks, I have trained my brain to finish whips I had lying around, and holy did I create some gorgeous artworks. I'll take you through 3 examples and their process and share my insights that I gathered from them with you. Let's get into it. The first project I graced with completion was a work-in-progress full-body illustration from April 2023. I had read the entire first arc of Chainsaw Man at the time, and I wanted to pay tribute to the chaotic and cat-loving Blood Demon Power, which happens to be my favorite character in the series. This is not a typical motif for my artworks. It was quite an ambitious project, and I knew it would take time and effort. I didn't think it would take more than a year, but that may actually have been a blessing in disguise. I stopped working on this piece right around the time I started rendering details on the character, and I can't quite pinpoint the exact reason I stopped working on this piece. What helped me finish this illustration fast was that I already had a really good base to work on, and all that was left to do was just painting over it and fixing up the mistakes. Those were easier to spot now that my skill has increased and that I had some distance to this piece and a new neutral perspective on it. That is to say that I finally felt like I had the necessary skill to actually finish this piece, and it was fun. Coloring and adding depth to a piece is my favorite part of the process. I tend to work quickly, and I like seeing results fast, which reflects in my rapid sketching style. But with coloring and rendering, I like to take my time to harmonize the hues and values and make a painting feel alive, when I have the patience for it. So, what are the conclusions from this piece? First and foremost, I'm really dang proud, not just for finishing it, but also for how it turned out. It might sound weird coming from someone who's done art their entire life, but I almost surprised myself that I was even capable of producing such high-polished artwork. Which leads me to the conclusion that I probably stopped myself too often before I could reach full potential with my artworks. There's been 2 concepts that stuck in my mind as of late and really inspired me to create this video. The first concept being one created by James Clear and his book called Atomic Habits, saying that if you stop halfway through a project, you're training yourself to only go that far, which leaves you stagnant in your progress. So in order to see better results, you need to really push out of the comfort zone and not aim for perfection, but rather a habit of completion to really train those muscles. Another mindset I stick by in order to not get so caught up in perfectionism is that whatever I get stuck on and just aren't able to get right away, I'll try to do as far as my current knowledge allows me to do it and then just leave it. It's best to evacuate before the frustration takes over the ship because take this. Whatever mistakes I feel dissatisfied with in what I'm working on, I can just improve on with my next piece. I mean, that's what people have always done, right? We do a thing, we're not great at it, and we keep trying and improve. And this holds true to art as well. It seems as though when you get to a certain skill level with anything, you really forget what it feels like to be a beginner. The things you learn at that point in time are increasingly complex and challenging, so it feels like progress is stagnating. There's this expectation that the learning should really come easier and just come naturally now that you've come so far, but when has it ever? Did it not take 8 or so years to even get to this point? Why is there this expectation on the self to excel at everything? So it's best to give yourself some grace when you're facing a rock in the road because you've already come this far, right? Moving on to a perfect example of my little rant here. So for example number 2, we actually have 2 pieces, which you can see on one of my recent shorts, by the way. So this pair of artworks is quite recent. I really challenged myself with this one because up to this point, a majority of my artworks is just character in blank field. They're colored and textured and decorated sometimes, but there's been little to no environment whatsoever, because honestly, I just prefer character illustration over that. But this time, I really tried. Usually, when it comes to an artwork, I usually finish them in 1 or 2 sessions, because at that point, the novelty of it hasn't quite worn out yet. Like mentioned earlier, I like to work fast, and sometimes that actually hinders the full potential of my pieces. So this time I had multiple sessions, one for sketching, one for line art, another for coloring, and a last one for lighting, which I struggled with the most. But I also discovered that drawing backgrounds can actually be really fun, even though I am limited to 1-point perspective rooms for now. But that leaves us with 2 revelations from 1 or technically 2 pieces of art that were finished. Number 1, it's time for more lightning studies. Number 2, it's not the worst thing in the world drawing environments as a character-focused illustrator. But from finishing this piece, we actually took something away from it that we can improve on with our next pieces. To say a little more about this piece though, it's in fact event art, meaning it's an emotional outlet piece. If you'd like to watch the short, or TikTok or Reel if you preferred associated with it, you can find it on my channel alongside an explanation in the caption. It was inspired by Undertale as well, by the way. Moving on to the third and last example that I have for this video. Also, holy 3 artworks finished in such a short amount of time. This piece right here is an old one. It's a simple piece I cooked up on a whim in some art school class, using a reference photo for the pose and the lighting. What I noticed right away when I started working on it again was that the colors I used in this piece, as well as on the power artwork, were quite muddy looking. Painting over it with saturated yet balanced color really made it come to life more. It mostly came down to rendering and lighting in this one. And I am quite satisfied with both. Coming back to the leaving things be and improving with the next one, I took it to heart and made sure to spend more time on the lighting, and it turned out quite satisfying. The character depicted here is one of my favorite characters from Steven Universe, Spinel. She's pink, a goofball, full of rage, and has abandonment issues, and for a time I found her quite relatable. Thank healing, I do not so much anymore, but I'm happy I was able to pay tribute to her. She means a great deal to me and my personal journey. In general, Steven Universe is my comfort show, so I'd love to do a deep dive into that sometime. To bring up another concept relating to productivity is the concept of the last 10% being the hardest to finish, and oh boy I felt that one. Because of my tendency to steamroll through the process of an artwork so many times, the moment I felt that the latter half of the process took too much time or effort, I would often just dip. Surely, perfection played some part in that, but sometimes it was also a sense of boredom with what I was working on. It wasn't a novel and exciting idea anymore, so I had no incentive to finish it. I really want to reframe this thinking, because finishing something and looking at it and thinking, I did this, is deeply satisfying, and it makes it much easier doing self-evaluation and figuring out what needs work and what works well already. That is to say, I obviously had a head start on these illustrations already, and I'll still have to figure out a way to finish pieces without abandoning them in the first place. But here are some major takeaways and insights from this little experiment. Number 1. It is majorly satisfying to see a piece of art through to the end. Not only does it set a great reference point for improvements in your art journey, but it also makes it clear on what aspects of the artwork you can improve on next. If you notice you're struggling with the lighting, like I did for example, but you do a great job at painting and color, then you can take that knowledge and decide to put more focus and study on the lighting aspect next time around. Number 2. Training your brain to finish artworks, and this also applies to other tasks and skills by the way, makes you a more proficient learner. Once the initial momentum of interest and motivation fades, it takes discipline to make it to the finish line. When facing a struggle, as is bound to happen when you're learning something new and improving your skill, it is imperative to venture out of your comfort zone and get that learning process going. Only by doing so can you take the step towards acquiring a new skill. Number 3. Building a portfolio. While most every artist has a bunch of sketches and unfinished projects lying around in their galleries, in order to build a portfolio, you actually need to finish an artwork once in a while. That is to say, that finish doesn't mean you need to render every grain, hair, and follicle of a painting, but at least go through the process of taking it as far as you're satisfied with the outcome or hit a limit with what you can and should do with it for it to be considered a whole. In short, making the effort to finish your whips teaches you discipline, resilience, and self-evaluation, which is more than enough reason to go open up that whip folder and get those 20% done. So, what are you waiting for? Thank you for joining me in this little experiment, and if you'd like to see more, make sure to check out the other videos on my channel, leave a like and subscribe, and also check out my Discord community. It is an open space for any creatives and cool people who want to have a chat about anything art or gaming or media related. See you next time!